when construction workers at Emerson High School in Oklahoma began performing a massive renovation to the building, they were shocked by an incredible discovery. Hiding behind the chalkboards that they'd been planning to replace was an amazing find. Underneath those chalkboards, the workers found another set of chalkboards that dated all the way back in 1917. Somewhat surprisingly, they appeared to have been left untouched for nearly the entirety of the century, with perfect chalk markings and all. As it turned out, while performing similar renovations all those decades ago, the construction crew had simply fastened new chalkboards over the old ones. While this was certainly a strange method of improvement, it did, however, make for quite the interesting time capsule. The coolest part was that the old chalkboards featured all sorts of drawings and notes from the teachers and students who attended the school so long ago. Some of them were so exquisitely preserved that it seemed like they could have been drawn that same day. Now, people feel fortunate for seeing these chalkboards unearthed for the first time. Cynthia Comer, an English teacher who currently teaches at the high school, told the Oklahoman that seeing the chalkboards was like going into a looking glass into the past. The more chalkboards that the construction crew removed from the wall, the more amazing glimpses of the past they were given. Underneath this one, for instance, there was even a perfectly preserved multiplication wheel that isn't commonly used anymore. Here's a photograph of a nicely written history lesson, which in turn has now become a history lesson in and of itself. This ability to see into the past is unlike anything the teachers at the high school have ever used to give a lesson. The material on pilgrims isn't so different from what is taught to children and teenagers in schools around the world today. It's interesting to think that they were teaching many of the same lessons to those students all those years ago. It's incredible to consider that, back when these illustrations and lessons were being taught to those high schoolers, World War I was still going on. And to think that women also still didn't even have the right to vote in elections? The children were also taught cursive skills that most kids in schools are not taught today. Nowadays, teachers are recognizing that this form of writing is a dying trend, though, 100 years ago, it was thought to be necessary. Take a look at this example. Local historians are fully realizing the importance of the discovery of these chalkboards. The state of Oklahoma now plans to preserve this thrilling discovery for future generations to come. The history teachers must be thrilled. If you think that these chalkboards from 1917 are amazing, you have to see this recently unearthed middle school test from a few years earlier in 1912. It gives a glimpse into how difficult school was back then. You might even be surprised at how little you remember yourself. You likely have a basic working knowledge of many things you learned while in grade school, though you probably forgot the most of the stuff you never used. This 8th grade test from a school in Kentucky in 1912 shows just how much those kids had to memorize. For example, look at this arithmetic portion of the examination. Math can definitely be one of the trickier subjects in school, and this test only makes it look even more difficult. Also, how oddly specific are these questions? If you thought the arithmetic portion of the 8th grade test was no laughing matter, take a look at the grammar section. Number 6 looks the most difficult to answer correctly, but there are even tougher questions on the rest of the test.